Game 1 of the NBA Finals in the books from Oracle last night. Cavs falling at the hands of the Warriors, 113-91, and it wasn't exactly pretty. Let's just put it that way. Just put it short and sweet. It was not pretty. Kevin Durant came into play and didn't look to be shy from the spotlight at all. Cavs had a lot of trouble just hanging onto the ball and taking care of it. Fast break points, really a killer in that one. But there is going to be a 2-day window here to regroup, and there will be another time to get right back at it and go for Game 2 on Sunday. And just like last year, myself and WHBC's Jon Bozeka going to bring you the next day analysis after every game. So, John, great to be talking to you again, and we're here again in the finals. Of course, Game 1 didn't go exactly the way we wanted it to go, but hey, last year they lost by 15 in Game 1, so not much you can do, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that obviously there's a reason to, push that panic button. I know there's some people that probably are, and they're saying, oh, you lose by 22 in Game 1, and, you lack some competitiveness at some points, and the Warriors just look unstoppable, and this, that, and the other. But ultimately, it's one game, and the interesting thing is I was talking with some people at work this morning, and all of us were saying the same thing, that every game in the finals is a different animal compared to the last one. Every game has a different storyline. Every game has a different motive to it. Every game there's someone different who's going to come in and play at a high level. Last night, Klay Thompson was I think 3 of 17 from the field. There's a chance Klay could go off for 40 in Game 2. Last night, LeBron had 10 turnovers. There's a chance in Game 2 he'll score 50 and have no turnovers. So, it's it is what it is. That's the way that the finals work. These teams realize that each time they take the floor, it's going to change. Each time they take the floor, the game plan is going to look a bit different, and the way you attack things is going to be a bit different. And as for Kevin Durant, I think that's what we should have expected. He made the big jump. He took the pay cut. He went to Golden State. He defied the logic of so many people of, saying that he should stick it out with Russ in OKC or go to Boston or somewhere else. And, he created the core four, and through one game, the core four looks pretty darn good. And the Cavs do have their work cut out for them, but as long as you've got number 23 on your side, anything is possible.
Absolutely. And, Kyrie Irving is one of those guys who has said the same thing in these first 3 finals that he's been a part of, saying Game 1 is always a feel-out game, so it's not necessarily what's going to be coming. Last night it seemed like the Cavs, they really just had a trouble dealing with how intense the Warriors' defense was. They forced 20 turnovers, and that's the most in finals history, if I'm not wrong, on that one. And it just seemed like their pressure on him was just fantastic. Klay Thompson, whoever he was guarding, whether it was Kevin Love in the post, it was Kyrie Irving or LeBron James out on the perimeter, really just seemed to get into their head. On the offensive end, he didn't really have it, but defensively, he was really just a monster. Same with Draymond Green. Draymond Green only went 3 of 12 from the field, but just that presence defensively to just hound the ball. It's like a swarm mentality is what I tweeted out last night. And what that did was it forced those turnovers, and then they got out in transition. And what happens in transition at Golden State and Oracle Arena? You're dead. Just like what I asked Ty Lue last week, you have to put together 48 minutes to beat this Golden State Warriors team, because whether they're up 20 or they're down 20, they're just going to keep coming at you. And in the case of Kevin Durant, it wasn't even him just shooting. It was him just at will getting to the basket, 7 of 8 from the free throw line. He had about what seemed like 6 to 8 dunks, and like 3 or 4 of those were wide open. But the thing is, about those wide open dunks, you kind of have to pick your poison. Andre Iguodala said it after the game. Are you going to leave Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson wide open on the perimeter, or are you going to collapse on Kevin Durant? And you kind of have to make a decision between those two, and that's the Warriors' endgame there. So there's not really much you can do there. If they collapse on Kevin Durant in Game 2, you're going to have wide open threes on the perimeter, and then people are going to start complaining about why the Cavs are leaving those guys wide open, but it's just a product of the pace. So in my opinion, I think the Cavs just need to slow it down. As much as they thrive in the transition game. They just need to slow the pace down and just pull their isolation ball out. They're going to need a little bit more ball movement. They only had 13 assists last night, but they thrive in those isolation situations, and if you get to the rim, I think you have a better chance. I think you saw that at the end of the third quarter last night when they started to get a little bit of a rhythm. Richard Jefferson attacked the rim a couple of times. They stopped settling for jumpers in those weird mid-range shots they were taking. So I think that's the plan they need to have going into Game 2.
Well, and not just that, but I mean, I thought last night that, excuse me, at times that they got the big three, the touches they needed, but at times I did feel like, and you mentioned it too, but the isolation ball of LeBron kind of going with the stanky leg offense at times, like, I know that that's been a thing of his in the past, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't, but in a Game 1, obviously where it is a feel-out mentality, I guess it's okay, but I'd like to see a lot less of that out of LeBron in Game 2. I'd like to see him, not necessarily more passive, but just to the point to where he's attacking at the spots that he knows he can, and then he's helping to find the open man. And I think the one kind of downfall to last night was that I thought at times they tried to get Kevin Love involved, and then at times they didn't. And I know that it hasn't really been like a sole focus of theirs to, get him touches. He's just been kind of making his own touches and scoring his own points because he's kind of grown within the offense. But I really think Kevin Love proved last night with 15 points and 21 rebounds that, when you get him opportunities, he can be a mismatch for them defensively. I mean, you don't just have 21 rebounds by accident. So, he's clearly attacking the boards. And in order for the Cavs to win, let's be real, Spencer, I mean, you're going to need a better effort out of Tristan Thompson. Tristan Thompson was MIA last night. I mean, where was he?
Yeah.
Was he even on the floor last night? I mean, there were times where he would get the ball and he looked just completely lost, and that's coming from a guy last year who in Game 6 went for a double-double that I can still remember seeing him running the floor and, making plays on the defensive and offensive end. So, Tristan Thompson has to be better. J.R. Smith has to step up, and someone, please, off the bench, make a shot. I mean, whether it's Kyle Korver or Darren Williams or, Channing Frye even being inserted into the offense, someone's got to come in and be that spark off of the bench, because right now what Golden State is able to do is they're able to go with their basically 9 to 10 man rotation and, get some little production where they need it. And that alone is enough to fend off the Cavaliers for, the foreseeable future. If the Cavs are able to get a good effort from Kyle Korver or a 15 to 17 point effort out of Darren Williams in Game 2, it would change a lot because it would force Golden State to have just one more player to look at from the defensive end. Part of the issue in Game 1 that I noticed for the Cavaliers was that really with the exception of the big three, I mean, no one else was a threat offensively. Who's there to worry about other than the big three? I mean, JR wasn't hitting shots. Tristan Thompson was completely out of focus. Iman Shumpert's really still not that great a jump shooter, and then your bench was pretty poor from there on out. So someone's got to be that spark off the bench, and the big three has to find their spots and attack when they're there, and that means all three of them. And LeBron just needs to be more he needs to be smarter with the basketball. And I know it was this feel-out game. It was Game 1. He never plays well in Game 1. But in order for them to win games, and I think LeBron knows this, he has to be pretty perfect. And he was perfect last year after Games 1 and 2, and I think he's probably going to end up doing the same thing this year where after he feels it out, he'll probably get into a groove. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see that early on in Game 2 on Sunday.
No, neither would I. But to your point with that bench, it is weird to me that Channing Frye got the only DNP on the roster. And this was something that happened in the Celtics series. He did not play much. And it seemed after those first two rounds that he was not getting played in favor of Richard Jefferson. So I think that Ty has to put Channing Frye in and at least try something because Fry's not getting any playing time, and he was one of the key members of this roster last year in the finals. But to your point about the other part of the bench there with Darren Williams and Kyle Korver, we got to remember it is their first final, so they're going to also have a feel-out. Game one's a feel-out for everyone, but game one is really a feel-out for the guys that are there for the first time in their careers. And with Tristan Thompson, it's tough for him to make an impact defensively underneath and get those boards when he's out on the perimeter guarding Stephen Curry, guarding Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson. So he's not really going to secure those many rebounds. He can get you your second chance opportunities, which was very, very hard for the Cavs last night because of the job that Zaza Pachulia and JaVale McGee did. But offensively, Tristan's got to be a lot more assertive. I know he's looking for that extra pass to those guys out on the three-point line because that's what the Cavs do best. But if you attack the cup a little bit early and at least establish that inside game, then you can open things up for everybody else. And that's what you're going to need to do to get the Golden State Warriors defense off their feet because they're extremely, extremely good in their rotations and their switches. And it's just unlike anything the Cavs have seen this entire postseason through the first three rounds. That's just the reality of it. And looking at the Warriors side of things, they could have played much better. They missed a lot of layups in that first half, even some in the second half, and they honestly should have won by like 25 plus, but they really could have just crushed their throats in that first game. But like we said earlier, it's going to be a different game too. We're not seeing how this is going to play out the same. Kevin Durant is a completely new addition to this team, so the Cavs were a little bit shell-shocked, and it's going to be something that you're going to need to adjust to, just like the year before it and the year before that, like the Warriors did and the Cavs did. So,
well, and I think that with Kevin Durant, the big thing that I don't really know. I guess here's the thing: is that you're going to have to let someone get their points. And I guess you do pick your poison, like you said earlier, Spencer, that, it's, do you want to let Kevin Durant go for 30 points a night and hope to shut down what's around him? Because really, to be quite honest with you, with the exception of Curry and Durant last night, I mean, no one else from the Warriors really had a breakout effort. I mean, Draymond was good. He wasn't fantastic. Klay Thompson was abysmal on the offensive end, and I know he did well defensively and obviously was a great spot-up defender, but it comes down to a case of if those are going to be their two scoring threats as they have been this entire postseason, it then hinges on the fact of, where, if you're the Cavaliers, where are you going to get that extra spurt to, I guess kind of combat that? And if you're the Cavaliers, are you willing to just let one of the two of them go off every single night? Like, you're going to have that night where KD is off, or you're going to have that night where Steph is off. It's just going to happen. But you can't have every single night where both of them are going for a combined, what was it last night, 66 points with KD going for 38 and Steph going for 28. You can't have that type of production for them for, every single game. Something's got to give at some point. And I guess here's where I run into the biggest issue, Spence, is that LeBron James is, in my opinion, the only guy on the floor for the Cavaliers that can really guard Kevin Durant one-on-one and probably take him and make his work a little bit harder. But I guess the kind of double-edged sword that you're looking at if you're Ty Lue is, are you willing to put LeBron James on Kevin Durant for the entirety of a basketball game, knowing that it's going to wear him out so much, maybe defensively, that he might not have enough to really kind of lead you offensively? And I think that's where the biggest issue comes, is that, at a point, you are mismatched in some way or another. And it really just becomes a chess game of, does Ty Lue want to risk LeBron James overexerting himself on the defensive end for, maybe losing 3 or 4 buckets on the offensive end, and that's kind of the problem for me here early on in the series. After watching one game, is that I don't know who they can put on Kevin Durant to kind of use as like a stopgap if LeBron can't be on him for a bit, because I don't know that there's one player on the roster that can just go one-on-one with him and match up and shut him down. RJ doesn't have enough speed, I don't think. Kevin Love is size-wise okay, but KD's quicker than him and can kind of jump around him and make Kev run too much. I know Tristan Thompson can't cover him, and it just really comes down to a fact of, do you want to put that much pressure on LeBron James? I know LeBron could follow through if they did it, but at some point LeBron's going to eventually run out of energy, and it becomes a tough matchup at that point, and it gets to the standpoint where you're just hoping that at some point KD goes cold or something happens that gives the Cavs a chance to kind of get some rest for their big three, and I don't know if that's going to be able to happen.
Yeah, and Kevin Durant playing off ball is just absolutely unfair. Coming off those screens, getting those wide open looks. But you're right about LeBron being on Kevin Durant. That would definitely tire him out, and hopefully it wouldn't affect how he would operate offensively. But I think you saw last night as well that the Cavs seemed pretty gassed after about 1.5 quarters. And that just proved to them that how that pace is going to affect this series if it keeps going that direction. So Cavs got to slow it down. Something's got to change. Got to get more from the bench. And for the Golden State side of things, they can get much better, which should serve as scary because they only shot 36% from beyond the arc yesterday, believe it or not. And that's one of their go-to things, even though they had all those points in the paint. But adjustments going to be made going into Sunday, and should be a fun game to get over to.
Well, and I was going to say I was just going to level with you and say that I do believe that the Cavs are going to come out and be a changed team. I really believe that we're going to see a different effort out of LeBron James. If he has more than 4 turnovers, I would be very surprised. If the Cavs as a team have more than 10 turnovers, I would be shocked in this game. And I don't expect the Warriors to play with the same intensity just because I think they came out in this game one. This was the we've heard enough of the Warriors blew a 3-1 lead. We've heard enough of that Kevin Durant and this and that. They came out with something to prove in game one. Now they put the Cavs' backs against the wall, and as we know, Spencer, and as any person who covers in the Cleveland media would know, when the Cavs' backs are against the wall, that's when they play their best basketball. So I fully expect them to come out in game 2, be a changed team. I don't know that they'll win, but I think they'll come out and they'll kind of set a tone for going back to Cleveland where they can either even this series up or get it to a point where they feel confident enough to go into Cleveland and win both those games. And honestly, here's the thing. If they win game 2, I really do believe then that the series completely shifts. If Golden State wins both games to start the series, I think Golden State probably has the series in hand. And I wouldn't have said that last year, but I really do believe that this year just because of how much weapons they have. But if the Cavs prove that they can win in Golden State, coming back home, they have all the confidence in the world inside the queue. So game 2 is, you don't want to call it a must-win, but it is the pivotal game of this series in my mind. Because if the Cavs win, it extends the series to a point where if they take one in Cleveland, they at least have a game 6. And they have that option of playing back at home in front of the crowd. So they really have to make something happen on Sunday. And don't be surprised if LeBron has one of those games that, we're all shaking our head for 48 minutes, wondering why he didn't do that in game 1. Because he's probably going to come out and go for some ridiculous stat line in this game and probably get some contributing help from his running mates of Kyrie and Kevin Love.
That's a very good point. We all know what LeBron can do. John, it's been really fun. Let's get to this again after Sunday, and hopefully we'll be talking about an even series.
Sounds good, Spencer. Fun as always.
If you'd like, you could follow us on Twitter, me at Spin Davies, SPINDAVIES, and at Jon Bozeka, JONBOZEKA. All right, guys, that was our next day analysis. We'll be back with you on Monday for Game 3 preview.